Now, Marcus. 1, 2, 3. Welcome everybody to the Liz Manoura show. I am Liz Manoura and this is my show. I would like to introduce our first guest. He is an extremely well-traveled scholar who's spent cold nights camping with the Inuits of Sweden under the aurora lights. He has also fought off the bandits of Kazakhstan during his stay in the Prime Minister's house. Dr. Austin Romano Polinski, it's a pleasure. How are you?
Shalom. Liz, how are you?
Very good, shalom. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here. I truly am.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
To say about the book would say what the book is about.
What is the book about? Yeah.
The circumcision of the brain and other equally revealing truths elaborates on the process behind the observation of truth. What are we actually seeing? What are we engaging with? What are we digesting? And what has to be removed for us to see clearly? As you can see in the front of the book, the which camera? Which camera?
I think B.
B.
Or A.
You'll see the crown, the foreskin, reveal itself nice and articulately around the cranium and the cortex. That's exactly what the circumcision process looks like traditionally on the appendage known as the penis, but it elaborates for 5,000 pages on the process behind the metaphorical circumcision of the brain. My views on alternate history as well. What could have not happened or happened that might change our circumstances now?
Right.
Pretty crazy stuff for some people to understand.
Yeah, I guess I would say that was a very difficult book to hack into. There was some very impenetrable language used. Some Sumerian, I believe.
Sumerian.
So you are well versed in Sumerian.
You're versed in Sumerian.
I'm not. I'm only two-time discus champion Liz Manoura. So.
Right, 2 times.
But I don't have any idea about Sumerian.
Sumerian. It's an ancient text, and it's fascinating that every letter can actually mean 2 or 3 other letters. So you can get the word completely wrong, and you can also interpret the word in any way you like. And
so you can write in Sumerian.
I can think in Sumerian. I can think in Sumerian. I can't speak or write or show you any Sumerian, but I can think in Sumerian. So I can.
That's you thinking in Sumerian.
I'm thinking in Sumerian. So I'm thinking. Yeah, that's thinking in Sumerian.
What were you thinking?
It's hard to translate because
you don't actually understand.
It's in Sumerian, and it can be translated in so many ways, and that's
right. Okay.
That's what I aim to explore through the understanding of the mind and circumcising the brain. So the circumcision is just the shedding of a layer and the penetration of a harder layer underneath that exposes the crown. And in cultural terms, they call it the mushroom. The dick head, they call it. It comes through the foreskin, but in this context, I mean what they refer to as the third eye sometimes.
Right.
But it opens up a lot more. In fact, it blooms like a flower sometimes. It's quite incredible, and it takes quite a lot to be able to do.
I don't see any scarring. That's the thing that I can't get over.
It's metaphysical. It's entirely metaphysical, and it's similarly to how you look at the lights that you mentioned before, the aurora lights. That was quite metaphysical also. You can't touch it. It's intangible. Similarly to your career, it was and it no longer is.
It's potential,
It's
right?
no longer
It's
tangible. It no longer exists, and so we can't look at it or find it anywhere because it's not there anymore.
So when you said that this was not a photograph, or this was a photograph.
It is a photograph.
So that did happen to your brain?
And yes.
And then you said it was metaphysical.
Yes.
So can you explain the connection between that, the physical and the metaphysical, and how you could capture one with a camera and you don't show any scarring? Is that...
The metaphysical just relates to things that can't be explained, and I can't explain it, so that's why it's metaphysical. Now, in the book, I explain a lot of things. About the math behind the exposure you're referring to here.
Right, okay.
See, the point of view of the cranium that you might notice here supported by Tom Cruise.
I was going to ask you about that because in the foreword he explains how you saved Tom Cruise from Tom's Cruise.
I did save Tom Cruise from Tom's Cruise.
Well, tell us about that. I think that'd be really interesting for the
The rotor got struck by a dolphin, and it wasn't too irregular to happen in that part of the world. It's generally quite isolated, a lot of sea life.
He was struck by a dolphin?
Struck by a dolphin in the rotor of the boat, so it no longer worked. So he was stuck on his boat for a period of 3 weeks, and I happened to be swimming from, I think it was from Spain all the way around the world to, I'd say, around Sydney, Australia. I got to around New Zealand, and I swam. It took me about 3 weeks to do that, and then I got there, and then he was on the boat, and I ended up running into him, and I was going so fast, I hit the boat, and I didn't know what it was, and I looked up, and I said, "Who goeth there?" And it was Tom Cruise. He was screaming.
It was Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah. No, Tom Cruise is an advocate for the cause. Tom Cruise is what you would call a woke individual, with a lot of reach and influence. So I like to make sure I surround myself with these type of people, because if there are no eyes and ears, then the message is not heard. George Lucas is another example of a really good friend of mine that's supporting the book and sponsoring my projects.
Would you classify yourself as a coherent individual?
Coherency. Do I move my hands and my mouth at the same rhythm? Do I look around at the same pace as I talk? I wouldn't have written a $5,000 page.
Did you write that? Because there are some theorists that say that was actually ghostwritten by several individuals whom you paid using what was your charity called? It uses volunteers to shovel snow into the warmer parts of the earth. That charity was called. I think it was called Snow Children.
Liz, this isn't discus. This doesn't date back to ancient Greece. This dates back far before that. Far before the Persians took over Greece and actually inseminated their seeds
Can
into
we
that
fact check
culture.
whether or not the Persians took over Greece and
You may.
what year that was?
You may. I will tell you now. I will tell you now.
It's in the book, is it?
It's in the book.
This book. It's like it was written by a child. There's spelling mistakes on every page. It's been printed upside down. The words are upside down.
It's a marketing ploy. It's a marketing ploy, and I implore your audience to see it a bit clearer. You'll find that children think bigger than us. When you're a child, but a babe, you don't ever question your thoughts. You're told you want to become an astronaut, a firefighter, a prime minister, a king, a pharaoh, a executioner. You want to become a mermaid. You want to become a lord of the sea. You can be all of those things, but society pins you down into a place of absolute chaos, internal chaos, the struggle of good and bad. So through the circumcision of the brain, you will find that you are enlightened to think again like a child. So the purposeful nature of the writing of the book, the relativity of the conception of circumcision, is designed to be understood by all people from all forms. Same as strategy has been rewritten by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which I'm sure you've not read either, correct?
I have to say I haven't read it.
One of the most epic strategies I've ever come across. Sorry, Ralph. What's your name? So as you can imagine, the shore, as the boats pulled up to the Persian longships pulled up to the shore, but on the top of the hill over there was a line of men near the trees, atop of 3,000 Greeks. 3,000 Greeks and 11,000 hoplites from different parts of what they called Hellas at the time. These men pulled up into a canyon, no bigger than a football field, and the psychological effect of seeing their men slaughtered and beaten to death by their own utensils created a psychological effect in the minds of the men still at sea. So what did Xerxes V do? He flanked around the outside and found his way to support his men in a time of struggle. But the Greeks, after rushing forward down into the battle to slaughter the Persians, they were forced back up into the trees and had to line a layer of archers
down towards the ocean. So they had to offshoot into these trees, into the forests, into the tall trees, so they could counter the route of the flanking Persians.
So it's incredible to know that men have contributed such multilateral platforms for strategy, and they have never ever been forgotten. Does it make you, it must feel incredible to know, or sorry, incredible not knowing you've not contributed that much to society through discus. Do you miss the cheers of the people crying your name as the discus flew across the land? Right there. That's the circumcision of the brain.